The bill seeking to establish a commission for the prohibition of hate speeches in the country has passed a first reading. The bill, which was read on the floor of the Red Chamber, is sponsored by the former Senate spokesperson in the 8th Assembly, Senator Abdullah Shabi. Don't forget, in 2015, this was muted, and at that time, the Senate President, Bukola Saraki, said that it was dead on arrival. It looks like the social media bill and the bill seeking the commission to control hate speech are back on the floor of the Assembly. So if you look at the impact or the effect of hate speech and the divisive conversation in the country, a lot of people will say there needs to be some kind of control so that it does not disintegrate the country. But other people believe that this is simply a means to gag and suppress freedom of speech. What do you make of it? So I have tonight my partner to discuss this, a former federal lawmaker in the House of Representatives, a lawyer, and a doctor of policy and governance, Honorable West Idausa, joins us from Abuja studio, alongside with, well, if you call you, she's popular on social media, Indicator. She is a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much for coming tonight on the program. Let me get your view, Indy. Perhaps, what do you make of this? In 2015, 2016, I remember a senator came up with his idea, came up with a bill in trying to control. A lot of talks came up and a lot of agitations about this. Do you think there is a need to control what goes on social media?
Of course, well, we need to cut down on fake news. That is something. But then we also need to look at proper democratic methods for this. I'm quite concerned for me, and I'll say that Nigeria's approach is clearly a tyranny of the political class, that people do not understand that, look, channels for conversations have been democratized. And so when we're talking about this thing, for me, it's not, for me, it's mostly about who gets to decide what is fake news? Who gets to decide what is hate speech? And we've seen with interactions between politicians and young people or people on social media that it is most likely them who want to decide what this is. And that is very dangerous. And if you look at the content of the bill, we are acting like countries. Of course, well, our democracy is a bit shaky, I would say, quote me, but I would say that we're acting, countries that are acting like us are mostly like Russia and the rest. If you look at what developed countries are doing, countries with stronger democracies, they are targeting the organizations, Facebook itself, Twitter itself, and asking them to review their policies. And that is how to go about this. But when you take it away from the organizations, we're not even having conversations about, okay, you need to open an office here. We need to monitor what is happening. And if your organization does not monitor properly, as it is with the United States, you will be fined. But here we are talking about Nigerian citizens, charging them what most Nigerians, we're a poor country, cannot afford. And beyond that, also talking about jail term. And then there's so many problems with this, because beyond that, we're also talking about the death penalty in 2019. It is appalling to me.
Reach out to Honorable Wesley Dausa. So a coalition of civil society organizations today visited the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Eyinaya Abaribe, and they are protesting the introduction of the Protection from Internet Falsehood and Manipulations Bill 2019, also known as the Social Media Bill. They say the bill is anti-free speech and freedom of expression. So there are clearly two bills that have been introduced now. One on the Hate Speech Commission and this one on the Protection from Internet Falsehood and Manipulations Bill. What comes to your mind when you hear this kind of conversation on the floor of the National Assembly?
Well, I think it's about not getting the priorities right. Because you know that within our legal framework, there are already enough laws to punish seditious publications, falsehood, and etc. You have enough provisions in the criminal code, you have enough provisions in the penal code, and etc. Now the point is, there is no need to try to stifle the social media operations in the way they wish to do. First, how do you determine what is false and what is fake, as my sister has said? The second point is, what do you do with the service providers, who should be the ones who moderate the outflow from their platforms? What do you do with the organizations? I think the interaction and conversation should be at that level. the Senate or the National Assembly should be thinking about how to put together a platform to interact with the organizations and with the service providers like MTN, like Glo, and so on, and agree on a medium of vetting the type of information that is churned out from their platform, rather than waste so much time trying to deal with Nigerian citizens by ensuring that you put strong punitive measures out there. I'm not sure that will work, and I think they should spend more time trying to amend the Freedom of Information Act, because with that law, there is no way progress is being made. A lot of states are saying that's a federal law, and to that extent, they are hoarding information from the public. But for the social media, how then do you monitor corruption and blow your whistle? The social media is doing a lot. Notwithstanding some of its setback, it's important that you don't send a signal that you are out to kill the death of information.
Let me come to you, Indy, for a moment. You see what is happening and how fast information flow in the social media, the instant effect of social media information, and how much of fake news and how impactful or how the effects can impact on our lives as citizens can be. How else would you say that this can be handled if you say the way and manner the National Assembly is handled it is not the best?
Again, I've pointed out that our method is, as usual, Nigeria, ban, brutalize our way out of things, and that's very lazy. Again, I said earlier on that it's a tyranny of the political class. What I would prefer to happen, and I stated this, I think I've said this before somewhere, and I said that it is better for us to target these operators. We need to target these companies themselves. Facebook can have an office here. Nigeria is a very huge cluster. It's a very huge market for these places, for these companies. Facebook should have an office here. Twitter should have an office here. And they should abide by rules. Now, if you want to give sanctions, you should give these sanctions to these organizations. Facebook has gotten sanctions in the United States. It has not closed down. Mark Zuckerberg was invited to their own house. These things are how it should happen. If you want to strengthen democracy, you need to go after the institutions instead. This going after citizens, again, breaks it down. Who is the government? Who gets to decide? What we are seeing right now in Nigeria is anyone with a little amount of power can make himself the law and then lean on the judiciary to carry out brutality against people. And once this happens, anyone with power can use state forces, can use the police, can use the judiciary to lock somebody up because this law said that. And we cannot lean on that. So what I would go for, again, is to have meetings with these organizations, encourage these organizations to open offices in Nigeria, to monitor, have rules for the Nigerian situation, point out this is how things work here. And also I saw I think Australia, one of these countries that says that if you post fake news, you have to post the disclaimer after it is called out, or the organization should post a disclaimer. So you have to monitor these things closely. It is with this method that we can actually go. But to say, oh, at some point you want to shut down...
You're talking about, sorry, Indy, if I may come in, you're talking about, you remember how people post pictures, even the xenophobic attack in South Africa, how people post pictures of what happened outside of South Africa, and in fact of what has happened in Nigeria in the past. You remember how people post picture of what is unrelated on social media to confuse people and to distract people. You're talking about perhaps what can take a longer process. What about citizens' own responsibility? Let me allow Honorable Wesley Dowser to come in here. You are an expert in policy and governance. What best ways is to allow or make citizens to live within the confinement of responsibility to its own society?
Well, I think the first is enlightenment information. What's the National Orientation Agency doing? They have to be at work really helping the process of disseminating the behavioral pattern with social media. The second point is, and you can't rule that out, there are existing laws, and we haven't seen much of it that has been used because these are extant laws that are already in existence, and they already deal with prescriptions for offending nature of such information. So use your laws so that you do not make those laws look decorative. Then, of course, deal with the major organizations. You have to have Twitter, you have to have Facebook, the rest of them. Here, if they are not here, you have to have your institutions, talking with them and reaching a deal. And more importantly, the NCC should be talking with the service providers, MTN, Glo, and more importantly, there is these group chats that are the major means of dissemination of information. Group chat administrators have no parameters. Anyone can set up a group chat. I do think there must be some level of registration, recognition.
Honorable Wesley, I must ask you, you being in the National Assembly, a lot of people put the blame on the doorstep of the National Assembly. They do nothing sometimes when things happen. So when you have these massive effect of some of these tools happening in the interim, what do you do?
Well, it's not as much as the problem of the National Assembly as it is a problem of implementation of policies. I have already said every law is a policy. We have laws already in existence. How many have been made to face that law? We have a problem of political will in our country, and we seem to avoid that by continuing to cluster up the legal space of documentation. It's not by passing all sort of laws and duplicating laws that will make efficiency guaranteed. It is the implementation that the executive gives to existing laws that will serve as a deterrent to all of us. And we need to get the executive to start doing good business with the laws of Nigeria.
Indy, let me come to you. You are an active user of these social media tools. And a lot of the times, if you go to some countries, for example, in the UAE, in China, you see they control the government as over some social media tools. For example, in the UAE, I'm not very sure of how much of video call you can make on WhatsApp. In China, you see clamp down on some of these social media tools. So if you look at how government has come in to see and come against those kind of things that have become vices in their society, but going forward, what do you think will be an immediate step that needs to be taken by citizen and government?
I'll take it back again to government engaging these people. Let us remember that the examples we're using here are not the best examples of democracy out there, no matter how developed. And that is not what we want to put Nigerians through. We're talking of these countries, at least if they are sacrificing democracy, some of them are getting something for it. Nigeria is not that case, and we do not want to sacrifice democracy at all. Now, in engagement with these people, with Twitter, with Facebook and all of that, this is why it is important for them to be here. Most times when you report handles for certain things, because the lingo is different, because how we speak here, our language, everything is quite different, they don't understand what you're talking about. And so the process for getting a handle out of a place is much longer. If you look at the system out there, I remember with some artists, Azealia Banks, and typing things that people didn't want to see. Once the complaint goes out, she was taken out.
All right, Indy, sorry, a moment, sorry, please, because I need to play this back, because earlier on today in the National Assembly, the minority leader of the Senate was speaking about this bill when a coalition of some civil society groups visited him. Let's take a listen to him.
We cannot make any comment on what is still on the first stage of the bill. But what I can assure you, and I can assure Nigerians, is that this Senate cannot be a party to removing the rights of Nigerians to whatever is enshrined in the Constitution.
So there is a right of citizens for freedom of speech, association, and all of that. But is there also the limitation to some of this right at some point, and the deterrents also, they're there. But where do we go from here as a nation? So there's some other conversations we'll be having some other times. But I most sincerely thank my partner tonight on the program, Honorable Wesley, also with knowledge in the National Assembly, as a lawyer also, and a policy and governance expert, been speaking to us on this matter. Indicator is also a public affairs analyst and an active user of some of these social media tools, speaking from our experience. Thank you so much for coming tonight on the program. Well, that's our show for today. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimberley. Bye for now.